Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this special Women's Month webinar entitled Women in Corporate Leadership. My name is Rich Velarde. I am part of the sustainability team of the PSE, and I will be your host and moderator today. To mark Women's Month, the Philippine Stock Exchange and UN Women collaborated to provide a platform where we can get firsthand stories from women corporate leaders on their experiences in holding top-level positions, career advancement, among others. We also want to gather inputs from both our resource persons and you, our attendees, on how publicly listed companies can accelerate gender parity and encourage diversity and inclusion in PLCs. To help frame this discussion this afternoon, we'd like to show you this video. We'll delve into those numbers later on. For now, we'd like to call on PSE President and CEO, Mr. Ramon S. Monzon.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Philippine Stock Exchange's Women's Month webinar for publicly listed firms entitled Women in Corporate Leadership. The Sustainable Stock Exchanges and the International Finance Corporation conducted a survey last December 2022 among 3,246 listed companies on 35 stock exchanges in 7 regions on the percentage of board seats held by women. On one hand, I was elated to learn that the Philippine Stock Exchange listed companies ranked number 15 among the 35 stock exchanges surveyed, having 19% of the board seats held by women. However, this elation was short-lived when I read that 15 of the 100 PSE listed companies do not have women representation in their boards. This begs the question, why? Where are the women who can be and should be occupying these positions? I am sure there is no shortage of qualified women who can be tapped as company directors, presidents, and vice presidents, even middle managers who can be trained and mentored to take on senior positions. With that in mind, this webinar was put together to gather thoughts on how gender equality in corporate leadership can be accelerated and how diversity and inclusion can be encouraged and supported among our listed companies. I am reminded by 2 quotes on women leadership by Sheryl Sandberg, one of the more popular tech executives in recent years. She was quoted as saying, "In the future, there will be no female leaders. There will just be leaders." Related to this, she also said, "It should be a badge of honor for men to mentor women." Even before the PSE became a signatory to the Women Economic Principles in 2020, we had already been observing gender equality in corporate leadership and women's empowerment. I am proud to say that female representation across leadership roles and even in our workforce is not lacking at the Philippine Stock Exchange. Allow me to cite some numbers. 4 of our 15 board of directors are women. Women have top management positions in our wholly owned subsidiaries, the Securities Clearing Corporation of the Philippines and the Capital Markets Integrity Corporation. Our treasurer and corporate secretary are likewise women. 2 of the 8 management committee members are women, both of whom are lawyers. 13 of 19 department heads are women, and 52% of PSE employees are women. After formalizing our support for the WEP, we have become even more mindful of the principles we need to consider in crafting and adopting workplace policies and best practices. I am looking forward to a very engaging session this afternoon. Thanks to the resource persons consisting of the following proven successful women leaders in their respective companies: Miss Carol Mills of ARIC Inc., Miss Candice Iyog of Cebu Air Inc., and Miss Elizabeth Uychaco of SM Investments Corporation. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. I would also like to express our gratitude to you and women for their support in this endeavor. I am optimistic that this activity will yield ideas on how we can accelerate women in corporate leadership among our listed companies. So I hope that all of you will actively participate in this webinar. Thank you very much, and happy Women's Month to all.
Thank you, Mr. Monzon, for setting the background for our discussion this afternoon. Now, let's meet the speakers. Allow me now to formally introduce our webinar panelists. From ARIT Incorporated, we are joined by their President and CEO, Ms. Carol T. Mills, who is also Vice President at Ayala Land Incorporated, where she heads Ayala Land offices. She has been with Ali for 25 years now and holds board positions in various Ayala Land subsidiaries. Carol holds a master's in business administration from the Amos Stock School of Business at Dartmouth College and graduated magna cum laude from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, with a degree in business administration. Good afternoon, Carol. How are you?
Hi, Rich. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone attending this webinar.
All right. So siguro just to familiarize everyone a little bit more with your background, I just want to know what was your reaction when you were asked or offered to be at the helm of ARIT, knowing that it was being groomed by Ayala Land to be the first REIT to list at the PSE?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for this invitation by the PSE. We can never say no to the PSE. It's always a pleasure to work with the exchange. Actually, Rich, more than 10 years ago, before this position, I was in charge of the office building developments for Ayala Land. And one of my projects was to build the new PSE building there in BGC where it stands today. Of course, little did I know back then that 10 years later, I'd be standing there to ring the bell for the first Philippine REIT. And I was the only female standing on the trading floor to ring that bell. So to answer your question, of course, it was unexpected. It was also really just being there at the right time because the properties that were REITed were first the offices, which I was in charge of. But more than that, I think it's, I was really happy to take on that role because it's something new and I really felt for the real estate industry in the Philippines, it's really the way forward. And I'm very thankful for the trust by our company, our stakeholders, and my colleagues to give me this position of responsibility.
Indeed, yes, the the authority, the leadership of Ayala Land, I think they've done a good job, no, choosing you. Okay, now siguro aside from expanding the portfolio of AREIT, now let's try to make this a little bit more familiar, no? Because trivia, we found that you're into baking. Yes. If you were to expand your baking selection, what are three items that you have not tried baking but would like to try?
Oh, okay. I don't know where you got that disclosure because we don't disclose that information. But yeah, I only bake really simple stuff, no. But I wish I could, and that was really more for stress relief, after work and then weekends. But I do wish I can bake more complicated things. Actually, butter cake is a very hard thing to make. The texture and consistency is very hard. So I haven't mastered that. I threw away all the butter cakes I tried to make because it wasn't good. So that one I still have yet to learn.
All right. So yeah, thank you, Carol. I would still like to try that cake. All right. So we will get back to you shortly. Now let's meet our other speakers. Next, we have Ms. Candice Jennifer A. Eog, Chief Marketing and Customer Experience Officer of Cebu Air Incorporated. Candice has been leading the marketing team of Cebu Pacific Air for 2 decades now and served as Director for Marketing. In 2007, she was appointed as the Vice President for Marketing and Product, successfully launching the low-cost airlines Go Fares, or year-round low fares, and the airline's refleeting campaign. Currently, she leads the following departments: marketing, distribution, ancillary revenue, digital customer experience, customer care, analytics, marketing, and corporate communications. Among her accomplishments was the establishment of a world-class customer command center for Cebu Pacific in 2017, the first in Asia. Hello, Candice. Good afternoon.
Hi, Rich. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all the attendees of this panel.
Yes, so there was something in your profile that caught my eye while preparing for this discussion. You describe yourself as a culture, transformation, and change champion. Do you mind telling us what that means, how that became your advocacy, and what you would like everyone to embed in their mindsets?
Yeah, thanks for catching that, Rich. Throughout what I've noticed, when I put that statement in my LinkedIn account, kasi throughout what I noticed is throughout my almost 30 years in corporate, I noticed that I've always found myself in situations where I'm either the only female in the room or asking questions about how things can be better, or improved, whether it's for our customers or for the teams I've led. So, and then following on that, when I took an INSEAD transformation course back in 2018, I was once again one of 3 women in a class of 40 C-suite executives. And so, that's when I actually paused, and then I realized that I have been given access to all of these opportunities, and it's a privilege, being 3 and 40, or being the only one in the room in the boardroom or in the management committee. And so part of that, I realized it's also a responsibility no, for me to sponsor others and make sure that I'm not the last, or that I'm always looking for ways to scale or multiply this opportunity for others.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, that's really interesting. Hopefully, we can contribute to some positive change this afternoon. Well, we have three more questions for you. Mabilis lang, just really quick. Okay. Since you're with Cebu Pacific, right? First, what country or place is on top of your bucket list vacation destination?
My gosh. So that's the irony of being in an airline where you think it's so easy. I can just hop, ride a plane and go anywhere. Um, and because of that, I don't as much as I could because nga it's like so much is happening, no? So if I think about where I'd like to go, um, I'd like to go back to Japan. I haven't been there since 2019. Um, that would be, yeah, on top of the bucket list right now.
Okay. So yeah, thank you, Candice. All right, so another question. Just
Kailan ang piso there? Is that the next question?
I think that's on now,
That's the
isn't it?
question that everybody asks.
That's coming up. If you okay, so if you can add a Cebu Pacific route to any country or city, which one would it be?
That's hard, because we already fly to every city we can fly to at this point. Um, yeah, I can't think of any now. Maybe the only one that is not on the list, but not because we don't want to, but because the slots are limited, it would be Haneda. Um, yeah, it would be Haneda, another destination in Japan. So that's one.
There's a theme here. There's a trend. Japan. Okay. So last dream travel activity naman.
Oh my gosh, dream travel activity is to sleep. To just chill,
Nothing wrong with
relax,
that.
and lie down and drink and sleep.
All right. Thank you, Candice. Thank you for all of that. Now let's move on to our third speaker. Last but not least, from SM Investments, we are joined by their Senior Vice President, Ms. Elizabeth Ann Huichaco. Liz Ann represents SM's interest in a number of companies. She is on the board of several companies, including publicly listed firms such as Bell Corporation and Republic Glass Holdings Corporation. She is also an independent director of Citicorp Energy REIT Corporation. Lizanne is a graduate of St. Scholastica's College. She obtained a master's degree in business economics from the University of Asia Pacific and a master's degree in business administration from the Ateneo School of Business. Let's welcome Lizanne Huichaco. Okay.
Good afternoon, Rich, and good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, so just a question. Was being a board director ever part of your vision for your career?
I think, no, I didn't really plan it that way. I was just working very hard, okay? and maybe more visible. Maybe they were looking for women, for diversity, or maybe because I put in more time, not having pressures from family. So I think basically, I think the reward for good work is more work.
And well, it shows because you have a very impressive career history. And in addition to that career history, which we will delve into more later, what is even more remarkable is that you are an artist trained in various media, from pottery to gold gilding calligraphy. So you have two caps then, corporate suit and artist's cap. How do you manage the two?
You know, I think if I were to, I think I would be a workaholic, and if I didn't have the art to focus on, um, I try to hold back and say I shouldn't bother my people, because otherwise, there are many things in a business that you look at, and I would be so agitated. So I think the art part is good because one, there's an area for creative expression. One, it totally takes you away. I mean, you get so consumed. You choose your own colors. You choose what you want to do. You don't need to call team members or bother anyone about it. So I think maybe it strikes a balance between one helps the other. In business, if art makes you more creative,
Yes.
and I think the business practices make you a more disciplined artist.
I totally agree. Thank you for that, Lizanne. So now let's have Carol and Candice back on stage, and let's get into the nitty gritty. No, I'll start off with a question from the video we played earlier. So according to multiple statistics, the Philippines is considered to be one of the leaders in terms of gender equality. No, there are relatively more opportunities for women to move up in their careers. Would you say that this is attributable to our culture? And has this culture helped you in your journey as a female leader? Let's start with Carol.
Okay, on that question, I tend to agree based on personal experience. Actually, in my much younger years, after I took my MBA in the US, I worked there for a couple of years. And yes, while advanced countries have this strong consciousness on women empowerment and gender equality, I think there are distinct cultural elements here among Filipinos that make it easier, practically speaking, for women to rise up the corporate ladder. So my example is having that extended family support system here that we have more than maybe other cultures. Allow working moms, like moms with young kids, such as myself before, to take on more roles beyond the household. On several occasions, I would always have a set of substitute moms who live close by, my mom, my in-laws, some relatives who live nearby to substitute me whenever I could not fulfill my mom role. And that really somehow allowed me, practically speaking, to give me more time to pursue my profession. So that's something quite unique, I think, here, that we have that extended, close-knit family support versus other maybe first world countries. I also think that Filipinos have a strong culture of respect for women. There's a matriarchal culture. Thus, it's common to see women as leaders excel in many fields, not just corporate, medical field, media, even government. And this visibility among women in high positions just further encourages younger women to rightfully aspire for their own professional growth.
Indeed, no. There are a lot of elements in the Philippine culture, and it seems to have helped because, again, second in ASEAN in terms of like the composition of women in boardrooms. So yeah, these cultural elements really do help. I agree with the part on the support of the family. Raising a family, it really is, you feel that it's a family effort now, and there's and yeah, those factors really help. No, siguro we can move on to the views of Liz Anne. What do you think?
No, I totally agree, because having that family support really adds really frees you from a lot of time, because work does take a lot of time, and and also you need to travel, you need to attend meetings, you also need to network and attend socials, entertain clients, and build a team, pursue further education. I think without a strong family support, the careers would be very interrupted. And I've seen it both. I've seen many women who are able to, like you have that family support. But I've also seen many women who've had to interrupt their careers because of, choices, the family pressures, and it's a handful. Some because they need to have children, and maybe they have no time or they're stressed, so they have to set back and then restart the career again. So, or sometimes there are also women with very jealous husbands, that their careers are moving faster than their husbands, and the women are sensitive and they don't want their husband to feel insecure. Or women who are very successful and exposed in business, meeting so many men, and husbands could be jealous, So it's many things. So I think having that cultural, where their support really helps. But I think also, the men in the Philippines are used to entrusting their purse to their wives. I think the wives budget and decide many things. Men also, they say that men have asthma. Ask my wife. No, so men allow women to make decisions and are comfortable. I think it's many factors. I think these all help.
Indeed. Okay, thank you for that. Now, how about Candice? What do you think?
Yeah, so completely agree with Carol and Lizano. I think we're fortunate to have a culture that really supports women in the workplace. So agree, I think yes to an extent, no, in the sense that on the surface there is really nothing that prevents women to progress in the workplace. Um, in fact, in this area, what stops us would most likely be the self-limiting thoughts, right? Of whether managing what Lizanne was talking about, like um, the relationship with the spouse, if you are more successful than the husband, or being the primary caretaker, things like that, no? Or the guilt, right? We've all been raised to expect that mothers are the nurturers and are the primary caregivers. So it's really, again, self-limiting thoughts. But fortunately, we live in a culture that um, supports women in the workplace. Um, but I put it's yes and no, no, my answer. The no part of it is, I think one is there is still a lot of work to do in this area. And since we are seen as being advanced, no, number two in Asia Pacific, right, rich in this area, um, there is a risk that we actually slow down our efforts, or not necessarily pursue initiatives. That's why initiatives like this one is really still very important, even if we are ranked highly in the region. And the risk is not because we rank highly, the box is ticked and we stop. I think we should recognize the progress and continue working towards diversity and inclusion, because I think until such time that we're able to really address the inequities, not just at home, but in the workplace, it will be very hard for women to look beyond these self-limiting thoughts, because these thoughts are actually grounded on realities for women, right? Again, seen as primary caregivers, the gender roles, the stereotypes um, that are hard to shake. No, so it's a yes and no.
I think, yeah, that's a good reminder to move on and move forward with achievements. Now, don't be lax. Avoid that risk of slowing down our efforts. No, so siguro on the let's try to talk about how we can move forward just by addressing some of the things that get in our way, right? So let's turn to Lizanne. Did you experience any barriers as you were trying to move up the ranks that seemed related to your gender or particular to your gender? And what do you think are the main barriers that prevent women from progressing in their careers? Or what factors make that relatively more difficult than what men experience?
I think we're very fortunate to be in a country where the opportunities are many for women. No? And I agree with Carol that I think many of it is really self-limiting. No? That that we the responsibilities we take on to. For me, it's been a journey. It hasn't been easy. I've worked for companies where I early on in my career where I think at that time maybe now we would brand them as maybe harassment, sexual harassment. Uh, so there are many. Those are some of the challenges earlier on. But I think women have to network more. I think women don't network as much, so this could be one of the barriers because to be entrusted with a board seat, you need to really be known. So which means they know you more than just the way you work, but they want to see how you relate with clients, for example. You need to be more visible. How you relate with the senior management, okay? How you relate with customers, no? And how you relate with suppliers. So there are many dimensions that you really have to do. So for me, it's a journey. If I take a look at from way back in school, I was maybe not the most likely to succeed. I mean, there are summa cum laudes. I think I started off rather shy, and I really didn't have a vision for myself before. I didn't have ambition. I thought I would be comfortable. I mean, I think I had the awakening when our own family company dissolved after it reached its 50th year, and I realized, oh, I may not inherit all of this, or I may not have a secure job to go into. Then I got serious. Okay, so that's when I started to strive more in school. Okay, make sure that I had good marks. I became active, became editor-in-chief, became student council president. Looked for a job and tried to excel in what I could do. But because earlier on I was rather shy, and so I took on a speech program so that I could, speak in public. Because I think speaking is very important. No? Because if you can't articulate what you want to say, there's nothing. No matter how much knowledge you have, it may not be there. Then I decided that I had to pursue further studies, like have masters in this, masters in that. Had to be ahead, right? So I think it's really a journey, to get there, because otherwise men are, since as you said, most of the CEOs are men. So when you're looking for board positions and for people who are qualified, maybe men are more qualified than women. So it's still an era for us as women, to strive harder, to prove that we can be like them, right? Because for men, honestly, their priority is work, because that's their casting, that they're expected to be the breadwinner, they're expected, so they don't have as many responsibilities at home compared to women. If a child gets sick and there happens to be no family support, the woman has to sacrifice. So the man can easily advance in his career, whereas for women, without all of that support and that endeavor to grow yourself, to improve yourself, it's more difficult to move forward, I think. I'm just blessed to be with a company like SM that has many companies, okay, and that also it's a company where 63% are women, okay? And in SM investments, in senior management, 53% are women. So I think so not many companies have that. No? As you can see, there are some companies that don't have, but we also have companies where where the women are very small. But I think it's because it's not the choice of women, for example, to be maybe in logistics. No, maybe it's not their choice to be in warehouses, or not their choice to be in a mining site. No? So I think a lot of it is not necessarily because of culture or inequity, but it's also women's choices, no, where we want to be. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you for that, Liz Ann. Now, before we move any further, we would just like to let our audience know that you can type in your questions in the Q&A. It's at the bottom of your screen. Yeah, all your questions, you can just put them all in. And there's also a chat box if you also have other comments. Okay, so now let's try to bounce off from those barriers. We said that they were a little self-limiting, and also there are also some clues of systemic things. Now, bouncing off from the barriers, Carol, why is gender diversity important in the board or senior management roles, and how does a woman's voice help achieve a firm's strategic initiatives?
Yeah. Well, I think I've worked within groups, with groups and in groups that skew toward, either male dominated, extremely male dominated. I mean, being in a real estate company, there are just certain areas in the group, like the more technical teams that are really male dominated. And some, on the other hand, the other extreme is female dominated, perhaps finance, marketing, etc. Either way, I think there are challenges when there's a lack of gender balance. And I think this is because there's just this natural complementary skill sets between the male gender and the female gender. I mean, I don't want to stereotype, but just generally. And I suppose it's really, the world was built that way, to evolve optimally with both genders working together. I often experience myself, when in working with teams, there's a better balance with female working with men, because of the females, they tend to be very detailed, they're very OC, and it works in conjunction with men thinking big picture, thinking broad. It really complements. So I think that gender balance is important across the organization, across ranks. In Ali today, actually similar to Lizanne's statistics, a third of the board is actually female. Senior management also, a lot are female. I think in the middle management, about 45% already in the senior middle management level. And this is, I guess, even at par or even higher than some Western countries, and ahead of the Philippines. I think that gender balance and diversity is important in the board and in senior management settings because of several reasons. First, having that diverse range of perspective, work style, experiences, skills lead to just more creative and holistic decision-making process. When a board or a team is made up of people from diverse backgrounds, and they are better able to identify and understand the needs of a broader market, including stakeholders, including customers, employees, communities. So the decision-making process covers all aspects. And this can lead, obviously, to better performance of the organization. So I think it's very critical to have that diversity and balance across the different parts of the organization.
Rich, if I can build off of what Carol just talked about, there is a Harvard Business Review research article, no, written by Zenger and Folkman, which shows that women actually score higher than men, no, in 17 out of 19 capabilities that differentiate excellent leaders from average or poor leaders. No, these are for capabilities like takes initiative, resilience, practices self-development, displays high integrity and honesty, developing others, and championing change. So when you think about these 17 out of the 19 skills, and if you just, for the people in the audience, just Google Harvard Business Review research, Zenger and Folkman, and this article will come up now. It really shows that these are skills, no, especially quite important in our current environment, right? In the VUCA, in the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment we work in today. Because I think, to sum it up, women get the job done, no? And are always conscious about developing self and improving, and so that I think that's the skill set that is innately there. The caveat, or maybe the clarification I'd like to add there, I think, is that this is really, and building off of what Carol said, this is really less about men versus women. Now, we're not here to say one is better than the other, or that we want women to get ahead of men, and really more about recognizing or considering that women naturally have critical leadership capabilities and competencies that will be of much value to the workplace if given the opportunity to contribute. These are skills that also support sustainable growth for an organization because of the focus on, again, self-development and developing others. And ultimately, it's really about removing the bias or over-indexing of traditionally masculine behaviors, like being assertive, for example, and also acknowledging that there is a lot of strength and courage in authenticity and vulnerability. So it's really about the balance, no, of both, and making sure that we give people the equal opportunity, because they're coming from different places. Whereas a lot of our leadership behaviors, traditionally seen leadership behaviors, have been modeled after men.
Okay, yes, thank you. You highlighted something very, very important, no? Not about men versus women. So men have to do their part also. So if there are any men in the audience, thank you for joining us. This is also important for us. Okay, so yes. So now I think we can answer just a few questions from our audience. Okay, just looking at the questions. Okay, so this one's for all resource persons. What best practices do you have in your companies for women employees that other PLCs may consider adopting? Siguro for this, I want to just start off with Liz Ann, because if I'm not mistaken, you are SM's first ever gender diversity officer or diversity officer. So
Yes.
yun, SM's best practices.
I think one is we signed up with the UN Women for Women Empowerment Principles. So we work also with women to give them business opportunities. So we have a lot of activities where SMEs, so that they can have a place for their produce. So we encourage that. We are putting the consciousness of women in all our organizations, like making sure that there's breastfeeding facilities. The challenges that women meet, how do we make them succeed? There's education. We're open. We're we were, I think, traditionally more of you learn a lot of things on the job, and you learn things the way we want you to do it, no, which may not necessarily be according to Western books. Maybe more like Asian books, if I may. If I compare the Japanese management books with American management style, I think the Japanese management practices are more attuned with Filipinos. No? Not about the men working in leadership, but more about consensus, more about respect for seniors, giving also lifetime employment, training the people, developing them, and then going by the tradition of how people do things. So this is really because that awareness is still very important. No, as you have seen, although we're one of the highest, it's still very low. No? It's a long way to going 50-50. No? And 19% is still a long way. No? So there's a lot of work to do, and with the help of Len, the UN Women, no? and various groups, plus how to measure. So we're hoping that we can roll out how we can measure and make this more scientific. No? So what are the practices that we need to improve? We're still in the early stages, so it's something that we still have to build upon.
Okay. Thank you for that. Now we have a question for Carol. So here, so is there a change policy? Is there a change policy or culture that you hope to introduce in your company in terms of treatment of women employees?
Well, not exactly a change policy, but more of like consciousness. We have this scorecard. We have to check some requirements that we have a balance between the in the workplace, between genders, etc. But I think more than that, I think it's important to exemplify and bring in more women at more senior level positions, because when they are more visible there, then it encourages the younger set of managers to aspire towards those roles. And it really breaks, I think it really breaks stereotypes when there are more women visible and seen and taking on responsibilities in the organization. It breaks that stereotype.
Okay, thank you po. Now, we have a third question. We're going to give this to Candice. No? How can women support other women in their organizations?
I think that's a very important question, and I'm glad that it's asked, no? Because in fact, I find that we always think, or we tend to think that we need, aside from that, we think that what we need is male allies, no, in the organization to support women. But what I find, and have also experienced the same, is that just as important as men supporting women, it's also women supporting women. Because in my personal experience, 30 years, I've had 9 bosses. I've only had 1 female boss, no? In my entire career. So I also acknowledge that my behaviors as a leader can be masculine, and that's why there should be that consciousness to actually stop that bias towards masculine models of leadership, so that we give way for other women who to come up in the corporate ladder. And so that question on how you can support other women is really just be conscious about it. No, I've had an experience before, if I can share it. It was an interesting one, wherein myself and my colleague, who was male, were in a meeting, and I said, I made a comment about something, and he had parroted the same. No, I said exactly the same as what I said. Okay. After that meeting, because we're in the habit of getting feedback from people, no, there was a female participant from that meeting who had commented that I was not clear, or that I was unfair, or something negative about what I had said. But saw that my colleague, who had just echoed exactly the same as what I had said, that he had said things more clearly, and it's a good thing that he clarified the objective, something to that effect. And to me, that really illustrates how, as women, there is also that bias towards maybe the male voice or the male authority. And so one way to really support women is to I guess to be open to listening to the female voice as well. No, I think for women, it takes it takes more effort, actually, to be seen, to be heard, to be considered. And as a women ally, um, I think we need to be conscious about that, no, and conscious about possible bias um, for male leaders or male authorities, and be able to see beyond the gender, no, because we also have our own biases. No, I think one of the barriers to women leadership is the gender bias, or that definition of what effective leadership looks like.
Okay,
Looks
thank
and
you.
sounds like, actually.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that input. Thank you for your sharing. Maybe now we can conclude with just some final thoughts, and with a question that can pretty much wrap up everything. You know, what makes an effective female leader, and how can women chart their own course, move up in whatever career path they choose, and become themselves an inspiration to future generations? Perhaps you can give us some words of advice for both women and men. Again, obviously, the events of this week are geared towards women empowerment, but we cannot discount the contribution of men to the conversation and the change we seek to achieve. So yeah, just words of advice for everyone on how we can make the landscape, or how we can help women just move up in whatever field they want. Let's start with Candice.
Three things, no? Three takeaways, if I could leave the audience with on advice on how to be an effective female leader. One is be conscious of the quality of your presence. As Lizanne also alluded to earlier, no, na parang the reward for work is more work. So keep showing up for work, no, with quality presence. And quality presence means speaking up, pushing yourself to the edge of your capabilities, and do what it is you need to do to ensure that you have quality presence, whether it's pursuing the arts on the side, exercise, meditation, travel, whatever it is, no, that ensures that you have that balance so that when you are present at work, you can give your full selves to it. Connected to that is number two is find allies and have the courage to ask for help, which is what Carol mentioned earlier. No, when you're a young parent or a young mother, ask for help. Um, whether it's family or friends to look after your children so that you again you can have quality presence at work. No, I find that the most difficult thing in this process of women leadership is asking for help. It's not a bad thing. No, find your allies and ask for help. Number two, and last is to always favor progress over perfect. I think women, it's one of the barriers. I think is women are very like, tend to be perfectionists. It's not a bad thing. We're very detailed. We like working with our hands and doing things and getting things done. But sometimes that gets in the way of progress. So, or even participating because it's not perfect. So three things: quality presence, find your allies, have the courage to ask for help, and choose progress over perfect.
Lizanne?
I think it's have a balanced scorecard, or you do a SWOT for yourself. Okay, know your strengths, your weaknesses, what the opportunities are, and what the threats are. And then I think also that you develop yourself, no? Like in a balanced scorecard. There's a section there for growth and development, how you grow yourself and develop yourself, as well as how you develop, no, and grow the team, how you mentor them. But there's also always the quantitative and qualitative. You have to have good output, you have to get good substance. And then there's the portion for customers. Right? You have to make sure internal and external customers are delighted with whatever you deliver. And then there's a process. You want to make sure your process keeps improving, whether that means technology, whether that means minimizing the risk. And then you have to be you can't focus on just one track. Like if you're good at marketing or sales, you also have to be good at finance. And I think finance, understanding finances, understanding strategy. I think you have to be a generalist too. You have to understand not just your technical field, but you have to be like a little of everything, maybe an expert in some, but you have to broaden. So it's a continuous learning. That's what I would recommend.
Lastly, Carol?
Maybe just to add a few points now. For me, for them to become effective leaders, they have to demonstrate passion for their work and take command of a situation. And I guess by example, ideal here is we don't look further beyond their own mothers who can, be effective leaders in our household because they can take a stand or make a bold decision when needed. At the same time, encouraging teamwork and fostering a positive work environment. So I think that kind of balance would make an effective leader. I also wanted to add that I guess as something to think about is sometimes for us women in the workplace, we really have to balance that stereotype. Sometimes women as leaders are branded as overly aggressive, or on the other extreme, women leaders can be branded as too soft or nurturing. I mean, it comes across weak on our part. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. So I think striking that balance is important for us women leaders in a corporate setting, and something that really needs to be managed.
Okay, thank you for that input. Thank you for all your answers to all three of our panelists. Thank you for joining us. The three of you are indeed inspirations to our audience, myself included. So a virtual round of applause for them, please. Now, to formally close the event, let us welcome the Country Program Manager for the Philippines of UN Women, Ms. Rosaline Messina.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for this wonderful, I would say, opening event for me during the Women's Month celebration. It's really very encouraging to hear and get to know more women at the top of their game when it comes to the roles that you have in the corporate setting. Um, it was in 2020 when we had this conversation with the Philippine Stock Exchange, trying to really understand how can we see more women really take on leadership role, and how can we benefit more from the commitment, the talents that they bring to the table. And now we're here 3 years down the line, doing more and really trying to reach out to as many as we can. Three short things that I really was able to also take away, but something that resonated from the 2018 study, I did link to the women in the C-suite position, that we are losing so many women. Women and men would start very much in the same numbers at the entry level. We lose a lot of women. We see still women going up, middle management, but at the top of the pyramid, we lose a lot of them. And it's not because solely of one factor alone that Candice, Lizanne, and um, Carol have mentioned, that it's not just the personal limiting, personal limitation that they encounter, but also the responsibilities that they need to think about, the surrounding community, the enabling environment that sort of questions them. Are you really the best person to take that role? Are you able to do that together with all the other responsibilities? And are you able to show that you are equally or even better than your male counterpart? And I have to say, this is not something that we want to create a fight on, but really an opportunity for us to harness the fullest potential of both men and women when it comes to ensuring that we see the bottom line increase for our businesses, our staff team, and also the community that we serve. And this is where we really hope that when we decide to provide an enabling environment for women to thrive and for women to lead, that enabling environment would allow any women and any men to take on that course that they would want, whether that's baking, whether that's leadership opportunity, or whether that's an assignment elsewhere that they need to also take time off from the family without judgment. An enabling environment within the family that recognizes and accepts that there are a lot of opportunities out there, but support and recognition that the responsibilities within the household is not just at the shoulders or on the shoulders of women, but there needs to really be support system that should offer that, and that our male counterparts and partners should be part of that responsibility. And I think the last part is really where the corporate leadership plays a role when it comes to making sure that this enabling environment is also supported within the organizations and the companies, and that we make more pathways for more women to really lead and thrive in the spaces where they are, and also to carve pathways that are not familiar to them, but they think they would also be able to contribute more in the space. And this is where I think the women's empowerment principles would allow companies to really start revisiting the programs and the policies that you have, so that these programs and policies would not just mean carved in your documents institutionally, but carved to be as part of the institutional culture that you would want to build, ensuring that you are able to fully support and recognize and develop the potential of your employees, and also benefit from those potentials as we harness all of them. Maraming salamat to the Philippine Stock Exchange for really having this very, very important conversation. Thank you, Lizanne, Carol, and Candice, for amazing stories and inputs that I also would be taking away. I hope you all have a wonderful evening or afternoon. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Ms. Messina. And that concludes today's webinar. We'd like to thank all of you again for joining us. My name is Rich Velarde, and on behalf of the Philippine Stock Exchange and UN Women, we wish you a happy Women's Month.